The Outlaws rode into Cedar Hollow on a dust storm's back, 5 men with more greed than brains. Word had spread that a lone woman lived out on the edge of town, working a crumbling farm with her young son. The place looked easy pickings: worn fence, one truck with more rust than paint, and a barn on the brink of collapse. They didn't know the woman was Claire Dalton. They didn't know she'd once been Sergeant First Class Dalton, a decorated Green Beret sniper with more confirmed kills than the number of apples on her orchard's lone surviving tree. It had been 5 years since she'd left the military, trading the sharp crack of a rifle for the silence of soil and sweat. Her world now was simple: raise her son, tend the land, and keep her past locked in the attic along with her rifle. She'd almost convinced herself peace was permanent. Until the Outlaws came. It started with a note nailed to her fence: "We'll be back at sundown. Leave the house if you want the boys safe." Claire read it once, then twice. Her hands didn't shake. Old instincts reawakened, sliding back into place like a well-oiled bolt action. She told her son, Ethan, to pack a bag and hide in the root cellar, and to stay silent, no matter what he heard. Then she climbed into the attic. Her M24 sniper rifle was still there, wrapped in an oilcloth, waiting like an old friend. She cleaned it, loaded it, and spent the afternoon lying prone beneath the broken roofline, reacquainting herself with the rhythms of her heartbeat and breath. Sundown came, painting the farm in blood-red light. The Outlaws arrived, laughing, weapons swinging at their sides. They spread out like wolves, assuming dominance. One by one, they dropped. First was the lookout posted near the well, a neat hole in his chest before he hit the dirt. The second barely raised his rifle before his hat flew off, along with a chunk of his scalp. The third never even saw the glint of the scope. The last two ran for the barn, panicked and firing wildly, trying to flush her out. But Claire wasn't in the barn. She was already behind them, moving silent and precise, her sidearm steady in her grip. When the dust finally settled, the farm was quiet again. The Outlaws lay scattered across the land, and Claire sat on the porch, rifle across her lap, eyes scanning the horizon. Ethan emerged from the cellar, wide-eyed. "Is it over?" he asked. Claire stood, ruffled his hair, and offered a small, weary smile. "For now," she said, "but we'll keep the rifle close. Just in case." The sheriff didn't show up until morning, long after the coyotes had grown bored of the bodies. Claire stood at the edge of her porch, coffee in hand, watching the sun rise over the hills like nothing had happened. Ethan sat beside her, munching dry cereal, his feet swinging off the step. His world was still small, still safe. For now. Sheriff McAllister pulled up slow, his ancient pickup kicking up more dust than speed. When he stepped out, he didn't even glance at the bodies in the dirt. He just looked at Claire. "5 of 'em," he said, scratching his jaw beneath the gray scruff. "That's some fine shooting." "Military." Claire sipped her coffee, eyes fixed on the horizon. "Retired," she said flatly. The sheriff nodded, like he'd suspected as much. Word traveled quiet but fast in small towns. He'd heard of her late husband, an Army Ranger, and he'd always wondered how Claire managed that place alone after the accident. Now he knew. "You could have called me. I had it handled." McAllister looked over the scene. Spent casings, perfect shot placement, no signs of struggle. It wasn't just handled. It was surgical. "You know their kind don't travel solo," he warned. "If they were out here, odds are more will come sniffing around." Claire tilted her head, the faintest trace of a smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. "Let them," she said. Later that day, after the sheriff left, Claire and Ethan walked the fence line, checking for weak spots. She showed him how to set snares and where to place early warning tripwires, not too obvious, but enough to hear when company came. It wasn't the life she'd wanted for her son, but the world rarely cared about what you wanted. That evening, when Ethan went to bed, Claire climbed into the attic again. She pulled out an old wooden ammo crate marked "Property of U.S. Army" and faded black stenciling. Inside were her other tools: smoke grenades, a night vision scope, a K-bar fighting knife with the edge still razor sharp. She checked them all, piece by piece, then closed the lid. 2 nights later, the second group came at midnight. 3 trucks, lights off, engines killed a mile out. They thought they'd be clever, spread out, come from the tree lean, use the dark. But Claire was already waiting, perched in the hayloft with her rifle barrel steady through a knothole. The night sang with silence. 1 shot, 1 kill. Again and again. The last man ran for his truck, only to find the tires already slashed and his fate already sealed. Claire stepped from the shadows, her voice cool, low, and commanding. "You boys never learn. He dropped his weapon before she even raised hers. At dawn, the sheriff returned to find another pile of bodies. Starting to think this old farm might be safer than the town bank, he muttered. Claire handed him a list. Names, patches, serial numbers. Until she'd pulled from the bodies before he'd arrived. Tell your friends at the state line, she said. This isn't some widow's farmhouse anymore. This is a kill zone. The sheriff folded the paper, pocketed it, and tipped his hat. Hell, Claire. It always was. Word spread fast through the outlaw networks. Cedar Hollow was no longer a soft target. The name Dalton carried weight now, even among men who thought they feared nothing. But there's always one. Jace Coulter, the man who ran the crew, the kind of outlaw who didn't just rob you, but burned your life down so you couldn't rebuild. When he got word about his men, he didn't get mad. He got methodical. Claire knew someone like him would come. She could feel it in the air, that old, sharp tension, like the world holding its breath before a firefight. Preparation for 3 days, Claire turned the farm into a fortress. She rigged the barn with tripwire explosives, laid out kill zones in the fields, turned the windmill tower into a makeshift overwatch post, and sharpened the quiet part of her mind, the part that could wait for hours in a prone position without moving. Ethan asked her once, "Will they come back?" She kneeled down, brushing a hand through his hair. "They always come back," she said. "But we'll be ready." The night of the storm, Coulter came at midnight, under cover of thunder and rain. 6 trucks this time, brimming with hired muscle. Men with body armor, night vision, automatic rifles, real mercenaries, not the small-time thieves she dropped before. They thought the rain would mask them. They thought night vision would give them the edge. But Claire was already set up, high in the windmill, dry, calm, breathing slow behind the scope of her M24. She'd adjusted her dope for the rain, accounted for wind drift, knew the range of every corner of her land down to the last inch. The first truck hit a buried IED at the gate. Chaos followed. Men scattered, shouting, unsure which way to run. Claire's rifle spoke twice in 5 seconds, cutting 2 of them down mid-sprint. When the rest went for the barn for cover, the tripwire claymores did the rest. And then, in the rain and smoke, only Coulter was left. Face to face, he didn't run. The man was a lot of things: cruel, violent, a killer. But not a coward. He stood out in the open, rain pouring off his leather jacket, shotgun hanging at his side. "You could have called the law," he shouted into the dark. "Law doesn't come this far," Claire replied from somewhere unseen. "You're wasting your skills on this dirt patch. A woman like you and me could make a fortune." She stepped from the tree, lean, rifle slung, sidearm aimed steady. "I've seen men like you all my life," she said. "You all think you're the last wolf in the forest." She squeezed the trigger once. Coulter dropped before the thunder could cover the shot. The morning after, Ethan found her on the porch, as usual, coffee cooling in her hands, watching the sunrise. "Is it over now?" he asked. Claire thought about it. About the world beyond Cedar Hollow. About wolves and sheep and the thin, fraying thread that separates peace from chaos. "For now," she said. But the rifle stayed by the door. Just in case. The bodies were barely cold when the suits arrived. Black SUVs. Government plates. No flashing lights, no sirens. Just men in tailored jackets and pressed slacks. Not cops, not feds. Something else. Claire spotted them from the porch long before the dust settled. One of them stepped out, clean-shaven, military posture, wearing a smile too polite to trust. He introduced himself as Mr. Harlow. "Ms. Dalton," he said, "we've been keeping tabs on the Coulter gang for some time. You did our job for us. Efficiently, I might add." Claire said nothing. Her eyes flicked toward Ethan, who stood just inside the screen door, holding the old family dog close. Harlow followed her gaze. "You've got talent, Ms. Dalton. We could use someone like you. Private sector. Contract work. Good pay. No questions." She sipped her coffee. "I don't do that anymore." Harlow's smile twitched. "No? Funny. You just did." The new reality for weeks, the farm stayed quiet. Sheriff McAllister helped scrub the last of the Coulter crew off the books. The town whispered about the single mother who'd turned her land into a war zone and walked away without a scratch. But Claire knew better. Men like Harlow don't drive out of their way for a handshake. 1 month later, it was near sundown when she found the surveillance drone, no bigger than a dinner plate, nestled in the branches of her apple tree, camera lens cracked by a stray branch. She disabled it carefully, fingers moving on old muscle memory. They weren't finished with her. Whether it was government or mercenaries, someone had flagged her. That night, under the old barn's dim light, Claire opened her attic again. She pulled out an unmarked manila envelope, taped shut since the day she left the army. Inside, a burner phone still charged. Coordinates. A name. Project Spectre. She'd always known the past wouldn't stay buried. Across the country, Harlow sat in a sleek office overlooking D.C., flipping through a thin black folder stamped classified. Inside, photos of Claire, her military record, and a satellite image of her farm. His phone buzzed. "She found the drone," said the voice on the line. Harlow smiled, steepling his fingers. "Good," he murmured. She was never meant to stay on that farm. Back at the farm, Ethan, half asleep, sat at the table, sketching little soldiers on notebook paper. "Mom," he asked, "when people come for you, why don't you ever run away?" Claire stared out the window, scanning the tree line like a hawk. "Because running only delays the fight," she said quietly, "and I'd rather end it on my terms." Her eyes drifted to the old rifle propped in the corner.